it's important for us to look at the sports fraternity in general and see what needs to happen so that we can all now start benefiting more from sports. In this conversation, we're going to have, it's our Mike on the ground. Mike on the ground today is at the Mothega Golf Club, and we have athletics represented here. We have motorsport represented. We've got tennis represented. Football is also represented. Esports, volleyball, and we have very many. Let me just tell you who we have in the room. We have Coach Ben Ouma, who is an athletics coach, but also very, very big on tech and tech in sports. In fact, he'll just be telling us shortly, he's just graduated his PhD, So it's Dr. Ben Ouma shortly. And we have Charles Gacheru, who is a Safari Rally Kenya CEO, who's here. He's also very big on sports marketing, and we'll be having a conversation to him about sports marketing. Tennis Kenya General Secretary Wanjiru Mbugua, who is also the CEO of Team Kenya at the Olympics. She took the team to the Olympics and then brought them back home, and the performance that we saw. Hussein Mohammed is the FKF president, the Football Kenya Federation president. He'll also be telling us about football, and we know the siasa and all that's going on about football, but also the fact that football is really widely played across the country. How do we make it make sense for everybody? Sylvia Gathoni, who is next to me, is big on esports. Now, what is esports? She'll be telling us about it. But like Mariam had told us earlier, esports is about now gaming, and it's become a big thing. Many of the young people, the Gen Zs and the Gen Alphas, and also millennials and some older people are involved in esports. How do we make it make sense for all of us? Trizah is a volleyball player, and she is the coach of the Malkia Strikers. That's Kenya's volleyball team, and they've done very well, and we all know James Situma is a former footballer. Well, there's nothing like a former footballer. He's a footballer. He's played for this country for various clubs, but currently he's really, really big on the welfare of footballers, looking at the welfare of the players and athletes. What do we need to do? James Wokabi is with NTV SpotOn. And of course, we know that James, whatever James is, he's been a sports journalist for very many years. He's covered sports for very many years. We'll also get his insights, right? Karibuni sana, Mike iko kwa ground, ndio hii hapa. We'll start with what our good girl Jano always does, which is just giving us a perspective on things that have been said by people before and bringing that to us. So here's a hint. Let's all listen. She's going to give us a couple of hints on the person who said a couple of words. Then she'll give us the words, and then Mike goes around. Anybody who can guess who said that gets a mic, and there'll be a prize that will be announced at the end.
There will be a prize that will be announced at the end.
At the end.
Hi, everyone. How are you doing? We need to loosen up. This is a good, fun conversation. Everyone's a little... This is good. I'm excited about this. Let me tell you. And we're being flanked by proper superstars, right? So it's really great to be here. So this quote, the person who said it is considered the GOAT of tennis, one of the greatest tennis players of all time. I'm sure already I can see people already running names through their minds. This is the quote. I really think a champion is defined not by their wins, but by how they can recover when they fall. Who said that? Let's do it like it's class. We shoot up our hand. Oh, okay.
Wanjiru should not get the first shot on this.
That's
She's
true.
From tennis.
We need to skip.
So who said that?
Either Billie Jean King or Serena Williams.
Serena Williams. That's good because they're both pretty iconic. So Sylvia has it. Serena Williams is the one who said that it's really about how you recover from fall. And I can't wait to hear from everyone here, people who've been in sports. It's really about the recovery, right? It's about when you've had a bad game, a bad match, how do you then pick up after that, right?
Yeah. And just to set the ball rolling, I mean, you are all involved in sports in one way or the other. And we've been looking at how do we make sports make more sense across the country, and not just the disciplines that we know about. We know about football, we know about tennis a bit, where sometimes we're going to rugby and then we fall, we're going to cricket and then we fall. How do we sustain this momentum across so that it makes sense, not just for us, but for everyone across? And Wokabi will be walking around with the mic, so I'm just going to say, raise a hand, then Wokabi will come to us with the mic, and then let's hear from you and the thoughts about it. But I think I'm just going to select Wanjiru because I said that you're not going to answer the first question. So then Wanjiru is going to answer the first question here and just opening up the engagement for us. You are the General Secretary of Tennis Kenya. So tennis has people who are tennis enthusiasts. They go for tennis. And then other people who just know tennis, they see tennis, they are like, all right, so we knew about Paul Wekesa many years ago. Now we know that we have a new prodigy called Okutoi. We have just talked about, international tennis people. But on top of that, you took our Kenyan Olympics teams to the Olympics and you brought them back. So you are looking at all disciplines. What is ailing our sports, Wanjiru?
Thank you, Latif. Many things are ailing our sports. But one thing that I found very curious was when I was doing the Olympics was I think federations didn't quite believe in themselves very much. So this was not just about facilities or funding, but we didn't believe, federations didn't believe that they could have champions. They didn't believe that they could take their players to the Olympics. So it was just a curious discovery. Even before we go to, we have no money, we have no facilities to play in, and so forth, yeah.
That's quite interesting. Federations didn't believe that they actually deserved a seat on the plane.
Exactly.
Why?
I do not know why. It's still something we have to deal with. But I dealt with maybe about 24 federations, and they would just come and say, we don't have any players. But when it comes to something like the Olympics, you push, you want your players to go, you lobby, there's a whole lot of things that you do. But federations didn't know and didn't believe that they could be able to do that to get their players to the Olympics.
I feel like I want to pick up a little bit on that, and you say you have to push, you have to lobby. So it goes back to even that spirit of intentionality or passion or awareness. Do you think generally, and I know we'll hear from other people, do you think when it comes to sports or certain sports, there just is a lack of awareness, a lack of passion? Does that then feed into a lack of investment and scaling? Like, what is it that at the core of it really needs to begin to be interrogated?
I think in terms of passion, each federation, each athlete, passion is at the core of all that. So passion is there and is a lot in Kenya. Talent is there. But I think maybe coaching standards, scientific, we need to move to where the world is moving. I think that is where we have been left behind, because our coaches are educated, but there's just that thing that is kind of holding us back.
Okay. Same?
Yeah.
Volleyball, football, gaming. Okay. I think Sylvia wants to comment.
Hello everyone, I'm Sylvia Gathoni. My gamer tag is Quinaro. I'm an esports athlete and I've been competing for the last 8 years.
Yeah.
I feel, before I answer your question, I feel it's important to give you a background for people who might not be aware what esports actually entails. So esports is basically playing video games at a professional level. I know some of us have kids, or maybe we ourselves play video games like FIFA, like Tekken, like Mortal Kombat, just to mention a few. And maybe you just do it for relaxation. But some of us actually do it at a competitive level. And I will say that the esports industry is considered to be as big as or even bigger than Hollywood itself, valued at billions of dollars. But I do feel that looking at the value at esports from its monetary value alone is a very flawed premise to begin with. And what I think might be the problem with our esports industry is that on paper we have billions of dollars, but I don't think our industry actually serves us as the gamers from that starting point. And I think part of that reason that ails us is because we don't have sovereignty of our own industry, meaning that we actually don't own any of the infrastructure to begin with. And if you don't have sovereignty over our industry, then I don't think us as the gamers have any reason to actually participate to begin with. If you don't have the infrastructure, you don't have the necessary funding or investment that is necessary to take us to the next level, then that is a question that needs to be addressed.
Okay. Would that be from a government perspective, from the private sector perspective? because infrastructure and basically investment in sports is something I think everyone in this room can speak to and say, you know, there's not enough of it happening. But because esports is sort of led by the private sector, right? Game developers are individuals, companies, corporates, etc. Does that then mean that for the sector to develop, even from a Kenyan perspective, it would have to be people in their individual capacities or corporates?
I think that's a very multi-pronged kind of perspective. So I'm going to just try and break it down. From an individual perspective, I think we have to first understand that we need to believe in ourselves, first of all, before we start asking the outside world to believe in us. And I'm going to quote a little bit of Malcolm X and Louis Farrakhan to give you an example. There's something they talked about called the tax on the mind. If, first of all, we don't believe in anything that we have to offer, that we believe that the outside world, like North America, like Europe, like Asia, are just doing better, and that means that their systems must be better, then that is a problem inherently in and out of itself. Then we look at the government of Kenya. Esports, unfortunately, is not a priority for them. And yes, we have an Esports Federation of Kenya, which is government sanctioned, but the fact that a structure has not been established that will serve as the pathway through which the esports industry in this country will develop, that is problematic in and out of itself. And then now we go on to the private sector. A lot of how esports is currently run, it's heavily reliant on publisher goodwill, and a lot of these publishers, again, exist outside of this country. And that now brings me back to my main point. We are not sovereign. We do not have ownership of our infrastructure. We do not have ownership of our programs. And if we have to rely on, let's say, institutes like the French Institute, we have to rely on the French government, we have to rely on the Saudis. That's, I don't know if I should say bordering madness or something, but that is a problem that needs to be addressed.
Very well said. And I mean, if we just talk about, because you've said very many things, including lack of sovereignty, lack of proper support at governmental level, lack of awareness by very many people who just don't even know that this thing exists or that this goes on. This is one perspective, which is a good one on what is the situation for esports. Let's come to the big one, football. People know football, so Hussein, it's not that people don't know football. The federation is well known. It's not that. It's well funded. It's not about funding. What ails our football, Hussein? What's the problem with our football?
Thank you, Eric. I think, let me take it back to even the first question that Janet asked about sports generally, and it's not just football. We've got to go back. Historically and culturally speaking, we've looked down upon sports over many years. Remember when we were in school, growing up, we used to call sports extra-curriculum activity, which means it was not mainstream. So you are told education first, wacha mchezo, soma, but today the world has changed. I think in government, back in the day, when cabinet secretaries or ministers were appointed, if you got the sports docket, it was seen as a demotion, or it was seen as your exit appointment. So we've never taken sports seriously in the country. We've grappled with issues, of course. Whenever we are doing our budgets, you'll see the priority areas are education, health, agriculture, security, and so on. When we come to the agenda of sports, then it's in the back burner. So you've got historic issues we need to deal with. Now with the new system of education, CBC, together with advancements across the world in the sports sector, the ecosystem within sports is enough to create a lot of employment opportunities and become part of the economy. So back to football, we struggle with the same issues that majority of the federations struggle with. Ours has been, in particular, systemic in the sense that we have failed repeatedly in physical discipline. We have never managed to be accountable as a federation in the past to our sponsors, to our partners, There has been very little integrity and accountability. So transparency is key for every federation to succeed. That is the only way you'll attract partnerships. And then we have got to figure out how do we commercialize sports? How do we now bring real money into every sport? And without the right eyeballs, without the right support from private sector, you'll not be able to do it. With football, it starts with infrastructure. If we don't have the right facilities across the country, you cannot commercialize football. From there, you need good governance. And I think those are the foundations. So for us, let's change the mindset. Let's change the mindset first of all Kenyans, that sports is as important as health, sports is as important as security, sports is as important as the agricultural sector. And once we sort of reboot our perception on sports, then I think we will be ready for takeoff. That's what I feel.
Sorry, there's this overall, sometimes a narrative that keeps coming out whenever we discuss sports, and we're like, you know what, we need more funding in sports. People will generally agree. But then when we're like, that money has to come from X and come to Y, or we have to be more financially prudent, this and that. But people will say, is sports as important as health? Is sports as important as education? They want to have, you know, they ask those questions because in their head, they're like, still thinking the same way you spoke earlier, that you go to school, you get a job, you do sports as an extracurricular activity. So in our budget line, it also appears as a by the way. What do we do to make sure that it's not just mainstream for us who care about sports, but it's mainstream for government, it's mainstream for every Kenyan who can see the possibilities, or even those who don't?
I think it's a good question, and to be more practical, let's look at the 47 counties. Assume you had 3 facilities or 4 facilities that support different disciplines of sports. In Nairobi, you have the benefit of socializing in different places like here, or go out with your friends over the weekend. Up country, how many social activities do we have? Now, assume you have these 3-4 facilities where you can charge X amount of money for the local community to come and enjoy sports. Immediately, you start an economic activity at the grassroots level. So the economy there starts growing. You have 2,000 people coming to watch a particular sport, or 3,000 people, and that's how you start it. And this is at the grassroots. So once the money starts coming in, you have more eyeballs, of course. Then you attract more partners. Then you start seeing the immediate impact. What does that do? Majority of the youth in that community start going to either participating in the sport itself, or as spectators, or are family members of the sportsmen and women participating in that sport. You reduce crime immediately. You inculcate the culture of a healthy lifestyle. So you reduce your healthcare bill over time. So government starts seeing less stress on healthcare. So you have dealt with the issue of insecurity. You've dealt with the issue of healthcare over a period of time because you've inculcated a culture of healthy lifestyle of a sporting nation over years. So that is how you have an impact. And that is why we are as important as any other sector. Because sports addresses all those issues. And it's not just discipline. We have a generation today, many people, you know, argue that are indisciplined. I'm not saying it's not because they don't participate in sports, but sports will, of course, also inculcate that culture of having that discipline, teamwork, and so on. Look at all developed countries around the world. And what they have done with sports, the amount of money they've invested in sports, is because they understand it's the foundation, it's the social fabric that holds the nation together. So we need to invest more, and we will see an impact on all those other sectors.
Right. Do we still have time before we go into a break?
Yes.
We do. And I really hope we can, I want to hear from everyone, just also kind of following up on Mariam, because I think, I can guess we've had this conversation several times over decades. We know that there is such demand for sports. We know that people want to participate. We know that demand also drives attraction from sponsors. And yet, there just seems to be a gap. When you think of the hundreds and thousands of people who want to participate in sports, I know they hear Siasa. I think Latif mentioned that when we were opening. So I really want to get to this pain point and slowly beginning to unravel it. And I think we need to have a very radically honest conversation about unpacking politics and creating opportunity, which I believe will then spur interest even from corporates. So that pain point, And maybe we can just get people to give their pain points and what is the first thing that needs to be unlocked. I don't know whether we should start from here, because I want to hear from all the different industries. I can give him my microphone.
Thank you so much, Janet. First of all, we all agree that sports, we face the same challenges. Although we have different rules, but again, we have to meet somewhere. And more so, I'll talk about football. And something that really needs attention is the governance. Because we have the structures, and then those people who have to implement those structures, they can't implement those structures because of the maybe self-interest, and they forget about the key stakeholders who is the player. And I'm lucky that I have the current president here with me. And I remember when you were side chatting, you asked me a question, and I said, we have a very long way to go, because football or sports in general, everyone has to play his or her role, you know. We have the clubs, we have the players, we have the administration. And if administration can do their job, the players has to do their job, the clubs has to play their role. And in this case, in football, we have so many challenges whereby, you know, a certain maybe administrative clubs feels that we have to do things in our own way, whereby the football player is always neglected. And the stats can tell you, at the moment, we have so many players who are not having good life after football because of the management issues in the football industry. And our main point is that we need to focus to this key player. Who is a key player here? Is a player who is directly involved in the game. Because without a player, we don't have any game being played. So what can we do? We need to involve every sports stakeholders to make sure that each and every individual has to play his role. And in this case, we believe that with the support of the government, because, you know, even the federation can't run football at its own, because it needs the support, it needs the sanction from the government, the support from the government. But most of the times, things are done politically with the different reasons, and we end up not performing even in the bigger stage. Like today, we have our starlets are playing Tunisia at Ulinzi Complex. And you ask yourself, you want these girls to perform so well at the international stage, and whatever is happening behind the scene, they're not given that environment, good environment, to make sure that they are well prepared, they're in a position to come and perform at the bigger stage. So we have a gap in between the administrative position to the players. So that's something that we need to close the gap.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
For me, I think what really ails us, especially being on the side of the athletes, we're having so many wrangles in federations that are not really helping, especially the athletes or the players. And these wrangles, you'll find that they come up as a result of officials seeking elective positions, not for the interest of improving the sports or the athletes, the players, but rather for their own selfish interest. So you'll find that the playing unit is neglected, or rather the decisions that are made are to for self-gain of the officials rather than for the improvement of the sports or the players. Because on our side as athletes, sometimes there are decisions that federations or organizations make, and you just sit back and wonder, is this going to push us forward or is it dragging us backwards? And in other cases, you find that the athletes are not involved in decision making, or representatives for athletes are not involved in decision making. And also that's where the point where we are always saying we lack funds. But what happens to the little funds that we get as organization or as federations. Because at the end of the day, yes, we might not be there in terms of gaining the funds or having enough funds, but at some points we have little fund that we still get as sports or as athletes, as teams. But you find that these funds don't really go into the work that is meant for it. Yeah, you'll find that, yes, you got a sponsor, you got some funds, but it is really not making a difference. It's just the same as if you never had that sponsor or those funds. So I think that is something that really needs to be handled, just besides talking about lacking the funds, but what are we doing about the little funds that we have? And of course, on top of it, lack of proper facilities is really dragging us behind. Yeah, we are not improving. For me, I can say when I look at my progress from when I started playing as a junior to the moment, to this moment, there's no big difference in the facilities. And like when you go out there, you find facilities, better facilities to play in, to a point that at your level, having played at the Olympics, but you can be like mesmerized by the facilities you get out there, because back at home, you are not able to access such kind of quality facilities. And that really affects the quality of playing and, of course, the performance as players. Yeah.
And that's a big issue, though. I mean, it's one of those big issues, and all of you know, at management level, at athletes level, it's a big issue where athletes don't feel involved in decision-making, and where they feel that the federations are not accountable to them, first of all, as athletes. And I'm sure even when it comes to Charles Gacheru, in terms of from the marketing side and bringing in the corporate side, that's also the other complaints that you'll deal with. But this is, you know, a conversation where we are saying we are fixing sport. The person who was just speaking is Trizah Atukah. She's a volleyball athlete. She is the captain of the Malkia Strikers. Very big. We also have James Wokabi, who is a sports journalist. He's been there for many years and is a host of SpotOn on NTV and also on Nation FM and very many others. And James is walking around with a mic, but he'll also be chiming in as the conversation continues. So who has a mic next? So the question that Janet, you had asked is, I mean, what is it that's ailing?
Right, because I want to unlock that pain point. And I know...
What are the pain points, whatever they are?
Pain to power is what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to fix it. So, but we have to, if we keep trying to put a Band-Aid on it, then we kind of will find ourselves in these conversations. Yet I think we're at that point where we can actually progress all of this, even though that sounds as simple as it is. But yeah, the pain point that's ailing that specific area, yeah.
So Wokabi has skipped the mic and taken it from the marketing side. This is now motorsport as well.
Yeah. Yes.
You can introduce yourself for people who are joining us and they don't know you.
My name is Charles Gacheru. I'm the CEO of Safari Rally. I'm the chairman of Tusker FC. And I also run the biggest sports marketing agency in Kenya, IMG Kenya. So thank you for inviting me. I've been sitting here quietly listening, and it's quite interesting. I don't know why you should start by saying what's ailing our sports. At the grassroots, sports is fantastic in this country. People love sports. If you go to Nyamira, Meru, you'll find kids playing volleyball, enjoying themselves. Go to the school games. The crowds at the school games are at an unbelievable level. You go to Shauri Moyo here where we grew up, and you watch basketball on a pitch which has got potholes. And guys are, you know, enthused, and they're very high up there. So where does it break apart? Okay, because it does break apart at some level. So probably a 5-year-old footballer in Kenya and a 5-year-old at Lyon in France are probably at the same level. But then it starts to break apart, okay, because of structures. The captain of Malkia is quite right, facilities. But also if you travel globally, and I'm sure you have, you find most facilities are in private hands. So if you go to England, all the stadia that you watch on television are all in private hands. They are not in public hands. I think the only, even Wembley is in the hands of the FA. I don't know, I'm sure the nation probably owns a stadium or two. But everything we see on television is in public hands. We're still playing in 1940. And why do I say that? Sports has moved on. Today we speak about ticketing, merchandise and so on. That is 1950 discussion. Today, private equity firms invest in teams. Private equity firms, IFC, all the development partners invest in sports. Okay, they invest in facilities. Manu, Juve, they are all listed in the New York Stock Exchange. Gor Mahia should be listed. So the product, and I think when I listen to guys in football, when I listen to athletes at all, a lot, I keep saying we're getting it wrong. We need to create products that people can invest in. Sponsors, I don't want to say don't care, sponsors want to sell their product. They're not there for the football. They're not there because you can jump very high or you can run very fast. They have a mandate to their product. So as an athlete or a team or a federation, if you keep thinking from your perspective, ati mimi najua kukimbia, and then you take that prospectus to the bank or to the Coca-Cola or to somebody else, you've got it wrong from the beginning. You need to think from the perspective of the person investing. What do they need? And then how can they use your talent to then have a meeting point between your talent, your passion, and their KPIs.
Charles, hold on. Are you saying that as an athlete, I want to exercise my passion? I want to play volleyball because I'm good at playing volleyball. I want to play, football because I'm good. I am good in tennis. I just want to get to the court and play tennis. Now you're telling me that I should now start thinking of how this tennis can attract that should be somebody else's job.
100%. And so I know our federations have been plagued. I know people who sit on the National Olympics. I don't shy from controversy. I know people who sit in National Olympic committees whose federations don't exist. Okay? I saw them in Paris. The federation, the sport doesn't exist, but they are the VIP box. Shameful. Okay? So everybody has to play their role. So the player must play his role, must exercise his passion. The administrator, Hussein here, must play his role to ensure that he takes his players, his teams, his leagues, and packages them into something that sponsors can put money into. The vehicles must be packaged. And I think Hussein probably mentioned about governance. That's why you come to golf. We are sitting here at Magical Kenya Open. I mean, nothing in this country comes close to the money flowing into golf. As a company, we manage probably, I don't know, $10 million every year in golf, a sport of, what, 15,000 people in Kenya? Football should be having 5, 6, 10 billion shillings in comparison. Hussein, best of luck. To sort of get the product working. Because the job of the footballers is to play their best football, to maintain discipline. The job of the fans is to show up at the stadiums, behave themselves, support their teams.
Buy merchandise.
The job of the federation then is to take that product and take it to, not only, as I said, sponsors and tickets and merchandise is a 1950 discussion. Today, Manu is being listed on the securities. The NBA, the MLS, the EPL, TV rights are through the roof. So the volleyballers have to do their bit. When we go to volleyball, especially women volleyball, the support, the study are full. How do we package that as administrators, as marketers, to becoming a product, not only sponsors, how do you convince the IFC that I can invest in this product? Safari Sevens, rugby, the sevens team should be listed, should be attracting investments from globally. This is no longer, it's not all, the sevens team is not a local product anymore, it's a global product. But Sasha and his team must package it correctly. And they must remember it's not about the rugby.
All right. Charles, we're about to go on break, but just before that, I think we'll come back to this commercialization of sports or over-commercialization, because from the fan and the player perspective, there's also some very important insight. But before that, Wokabi, you sit not above this conversation, but with a lot more perspective, because you speak to everybody seated here, to the fans, and you hear what everyone has to say, what everyone's actual pain point is. In your view, is it an administrative problem? Is it a federation problem, a management problem? Is it a fan problem? Are we just not good enough fans to our sports people? Are we not good enough consumers of sport? Shide Kwapi?
It's a multi-layered problem. We have many problems. The biggest one is our sport is still that. Bado ni michezo. None of us, we don't look at it as an industry. And this starts from government all the way to the federation, at times all the way to the athlete. So if you are to ask, do athletes give enough? At times not enough. Some like Trizah have given blood and sweat and tears. Some like Situma have. But some have had opportunities but thrown them away. You talk about federations, some federations have thrown away everything. Perfect example, sorry to use Trizah again, is volleyball. A year ago, wasn't there a fight between FIVB and Kenya Volleyball about who's coaching, who's not coaching? Yeah. Did we lose that sponsorship? Are they now looking for a coach? So what was the plan that has changed in a year? So part of it is, it's a lot of things. It's also, does the government see sport as something that is important? Great. Does it see sport as something that can be used to alleviate some of the problems, or is sport another, is it just makeup? When government is being put together, is the sports ministry a key ministry that people fight for? Or is it a, by the way, is it a makeup? Is it a makeup to please someone or not to please someone? Right. Do the administrators look at sports as something big, or are they there because they want to make it to the Paris team and they want to be able to go and see the sights and sounds of Paris? Or do they look at it as we want to make sure we succeed? So the problem is multifaceted. It's, and we are still in the 90s. Gacheru says we're in the 50s. Maybe we still are in the 50s, where we are still looking at sports as something that is done on the corner there. And then when you're done, you come back. But look at NCAA. Look at the US. How big is sports? But us as a country, we are still at the point where we are like, watch our pige kelele wamalize. So even before we get to esports, because when she was talking, I was thinking, she has such great points, but we are so far behind. We haven't even started with the most basic of sports, football and athletics. We are still stuck in the 1960s. We are still stuck in the 1970s, because no one seems to see the big picture. Our corporates as well, because our corporates will say we want something good to market. I'll give you a question. Emmanuel Wanyonyi, how many sponsorship deals does he have in this country? Beatrice Chebet, first Kenyan man or woman to win 2 Olympic gold medals in 1 Olympics. Have you seen her on any billboard? Have you seen her on anything? So in that case, at times I get confused. I wonder, so what do the corporates want? Okay? But also on the other hand, maybe have we packaged ourselves enough? So it's a big problem with Kenyan sport, and it's not one. It's several, it's got like 1A to 1Q. Okay. And all those are problems.
And then you go to 2.
And then we go to 2.
All the way to 10. Yeah. Let's take a break, Wokabi. So James Wokabi, of course, is a host of SpotOn on NTV, and also he hosts the football show on Sunday morning on Nation FM. He's one of us today as we are fixing sport, and we have invited, a group of people here who include fans, and you can show the fans who are all behind here. Yeah, and we'll be talking to them and hearing, okay, so what is it, munataka? So mmekuja golf leo, nini tafanya muende tennis next week? Ama tuende rugby, ama tuende, or we go into esports. How do we even play esports? Sylvia Gathoni, who's next to me, is an esports enthusiast and also has done a lot into just making people get to know about that. We have also Hussein Mohammed, the president of Football Kenya Federation, Trizah Atukah, the Malkia strikers captain, James Situma, who is in Football Players Welfare Association. We have Wanjiru Mbugua, the Team Kenya CEO and the General Secretary of Tennis Kenya. Charles Gacheru, he's a sports marketer who is chair of Atukah FC, who's a CEO of Safari Rally, who's in motorsport. Coach Ouma, who is big on athletics and has coached people who have won across the country. When we come back, now we ask ourselves, so how do we fix it? Okay, so we have touched on some of the problems that we have. As we touch on the problems, then we also ask ourselves, what's the fix? Where does the fix lie? Keep it here. We are fixing this nation one conversation at a time. And today we have decided, let's fix our sport. Eric Latif, Mariam Bishar and Janet Mbugua. We are joined by a group of people here who represent the various disciplines in sport and also investment in sport, marketing in sport. And we're asking ourselves, so what do we need to do to fix our sport so that our sport makes sense all the way from the beginning, from people playing as a passion to people making money out of it and everybody in that ecosystem benefiting. In the next hour, we are asking ourselves, how do we fix it? Mariam, let's start injecting.
I had quite a problem with what Charles said. I think, and I'm not the biggest like sports fanatic, and I can't say I know the numbers, but I feel like I do understand consumer behavior to some extent. If you lead with the money, eventually you lose the people. But the money is important. To his point, I do get, that we need to think of it from a commercial angle. But I want to hear from people who are in the industry and people who do consume and watch and play and live and breathe sports. Is it a danger to let the money lead, or is it the only way to make sports sustainable in Kenya? Charles, I'll begin with you because it was, yes, your thought.
Right of reply.
Yes, right of reply.
Mariam, is it?
Yes.
I'm not sure I said the money leads. I think the money actually follows.
Okay.
So I think I started by saying that on the ground you find people playing sports, absolutely no money involved. You'll find kids in Shauri Moyo, in Mokorowaine, playing football. Kenya Secondary School is probably our biggest sports arena. There's no prize money involved. Those kids are just playing with heart. You go to Chapadimba, which is sponsored by Safaricom. It's just heart. So we started there, and most of us were kept on the straight and narrow because of sports. So we came from school at 3. You guys wouldn't know that. You're too young. But
we saw the boxes. We
came from school at 3:30, walked home, and did homework, and then you played sports. We didn't play for money, and I think a lot of our guys today, Hussein, sorry to come back to you. The league, we've played the league with passion, with absolutely no prize money. The football league, the biggest league in the country, we've played without prize money. So the money follows good products. So the reality of cash is there. If you have to develop good footballers, Situma and his colleagues, good volleyballers, today we look at, sorry again, Hussein, Women's Premier League. Our girls who are playing in the Women's Premier League are living in deplorable conditions. They deserve a decent living wage. How are we going to do that without cash? So we need the products, and then the money follows the product, and then the players can be paid better. We can get better coaches. We can have better playing surfaces. So money, it's an evil thing, but we must follow it. But also let me also say something about government, because government has been mentioned here a lot, and as a state officer, me and Ouma here, we say we have an obligation to defend the government of Kenya. I think sometimes the government of Kenya is vilified, and I think that sometimes it's also hammered for the right reasons, okay? So I think the government has a duty to create sort of a top-level strategic plan. What do we want to do as a nation? We are a country that has got X amount of cash. We are going to focus on the following spots, period. We're going to focus on infrastructure. But it cannot be that everybody is knocking on the door of government. You want to go for a trip, to do which sport is going, everybody's going for a trip. Nobody's talking about grassroots development, training of trainers, facilities, and government has become this thing, oh, we are stuck at the airport, government. Just stay at home. So I'm sorry, government has a role, yes, but government is not the magic bullet. Events like the Magical Kenya Open have been held, Collins might know, but it's over almost 60 years. We ran this event for years and years from 1991 to almost 2018 with zero government funding. Okay? And the event is what it is today. So I think federations, sports people must stop just looking at government. In fact, if I was running the fund, I would be saying it's a shilling for a shilling. If you cannot attract one bob from corporate sector or private sector, do not come to government. Because the biggest check of governance are the corporate bodies. They will take you through a big governance check. So government can sit back and chill. If you can raise $1 from corporate sector, you may get $1 from us.
So the question, Mariam, you're asking is whether the shilling should matter.
Not even, no, the shilling absolutely should matter.
It's whether the shilling is number one on the priority.
Yes, or is the priority, but he's clarified it's not the money leading. So but now on to
that's his view. He's Ouma. He's also from the injured.
Ouma is, Daktari.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's loud enough. My name is Bernard Ouma, coach and sports scientist, while an Olympic middle distance coach in athletics as well. And I do advisory roles at the Ministry of Sports, Youth Affairs, Creative Economy and Sports. I like the conversation going on, and I'm happy that I'm speaking last, or probably close to last. I've seen the motto, we are fixing sport. I don't know what we are fixing. I've got a different opinion. We need to fix our mindset, first of all. This is a collective obligation and responsibility that is touching on us. We have gaps. It's true, we do have gaps. From policy issues, technical issues, and governance. Sports is great in terms of living a healthy life and weeding away the non-communicable diseases and supporting old age maintenance as well, because when you're doing good sports, you live longer, you live a healthy life. And again, changing the socio-economic status of many athletes. And again, supporting on the social mobility of athletes. Athletes playing to be paid, athletes like him going to play abroad and getting very good money, attracting sponsorship as well. And the main thing is governance. It is governance, governance, and governance. Because when you have good governance, you're going to attract sponsorship. Tunasema pesa haipendi kelele. Kwetu, pesa ukwero koko. Why do we say that? When people are level-headed and plans are done in place, we'll attract sponsorships. When I say policy gaps, I know there are a lot of issues that need to be done, and I know there's a task force which was gazetted last year, which is still ongoing, to work on policy issues and legal framework on how to run the sports in this country. Like what WRC CEO, Mr. Gacheru, spoke about, the number of federations that are being formed. Federations that some of them are briefcase, federations that some of them are very good, like FKF, which are looking at how to run, running and managing football. The government job, apart from regulatory, we need to understand the structures of how these things work. From international federations to national federations to clubs, coaches, and athletes.
I think I'm so sorry to interrupt. We just want to make sure that we're listening to investment. I think there's going to be a comment, private sector, fans, and I think folks like James and Sylvia want to come back and comment. Just requesting if you can just briefly give us your remarks, because we also think it's important we hear from you in the interest of time. Also, for everybody else who will hold the mic, let's try as much as possible to be cognizant of the fact that we need to hear from as many people in the shortest amount of time. Apologies for interrupting. Please go ahead and conclude.
Yeah, so what I was trying to say, that everybody should carry their weight as well. When you're a coach, when you're an athlete, there has to be some deliberate approach to your training. Of course, there has to be some structural approach and involvement in that. Yes, the work of the federations as well, and the work of the government as well. I don't think the government should be the sole sponsorship of everything. So our major problem is not resources. Our major problem is advisory, and a number of gaps that each of one has to get involved to be sorted out. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think this is sports investment. If I'm not
Olivia
mistaken.
Mbani has the money to put in sports. And also sitting next to her is Christine Karaoke. Christine is a marketing manager at Tusker. Also, just looking at how corporates can also participate, just like Charles is saying, how do we attract money to come into sport, into all sports, and not just the big sports? Olivia.
Yes, so my name is Olivia Mbani. I've been a fan of sports for so many years. Sports kept me in school, actually. And so now, as a fan, I was like, how can we change sports? And I thought, why don't I invest? And I thought, I don't feel like I have big money, but I can do something. And one of the things I found an opportunity in is communicating and marketing sports. As a fan, we are always at the matches. We see different things that are going on. And I feel like that's an opportunity in sports that is not being capitalized yet, is showing what is happening, what is the progress. And also, in a deeper level, how can people invest? Expanding the way we look at investment in not just a corporate. You don't have to be a corporate to invest. There's so much need. You have a gym, for instance, or you can pay gym membership for different athletes. You could fund their physio. I feel like in Kenya, we need to expand the way we think about investment because, as we see, sports is massive, and there's so many levels in which we need investment. But if you only think government, if you only think a big corporate, I feel then we almost disempower ourselves. So for me, it's a call to action. To all of us who are fans of sports, who want sports to go forward, look at a way of investing. It might be your time, it might be your skills, it might be your money. You know, what can we do to move it forward? Because nothing will move unless we do something. And so that's my challenge, and that's why I am. I'm very passionate about sports. We had a great conversation, and so we're going to have a meeting here and see how can we move it forward. So that for me is actually what I'm saying is, after this conversation, what action will we all individually do to move sports forward?
Oh, I like that you're going to meet. By the way, fun fact, Olivia was my head girl. I was her deputy.
Oh, really?
Fun fact. Yes. That's why I was like, let her speak.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's also Collins Were, who was about to talk before you took the break earlier. Collins is from the private sector as well. And we're talking about, and you're also involved in administration of golf. So also golf is represented in this conversation. Still answering the question, how do we fix this issue of, sports, making it end-to-end make sense for all of us? And let's be candid and open. I like how Charles is saying, this is where the issue is. Let's go for the solution. Ben says there's no issue. What is all this? What do you think?
Okay, thank you, Latif. So for me, everything that has been said here is valid. Number one, from my even private sector perspective in terms of sponsoring, or actually nowadays is partnership. Traditionally in sports, we used to say that you are going to seek sponsorship, which you are going to beg, and then you'll be given support based on the goodness of the sponsor. And what used to happen many years ago, a decade ago, sponsorship was around. It was like CSR. But things have changed. The economy is tough. Every shilling counts. So from the sporting perspective, when you're going to approach sponsors or partners, the issue of governance is a must. If you don't have governance, you won't go anywhere in that discussion. And then number two, money matters. And they say the money makes the world go round. What happens is that for someone to put money somewhere, it must make sense. What are the things that from a sporting perspective matter? First, for the numbers. Fan base, eyeballs. You see, if those numbers are not there, remember you are going to company A. They have 100 requests. What is the differentiator? The issue of numbers matters. Gacheru spoke about secondary sports games. That is the most vibrant sporting activity we have in the country. And the numbers that are there, what happens after secondary is because all this, they're in academics, but when they leave that secondary school going to college, they concentrate on that career line, but sport takes a back seat. But it's still possible to translate that vibrancy at grassroots level to build it, and that's where the numbers come from. Because if you take a sport, let's say football, volleyball, if the numbers are there at age 18, how comes at age 25, 30, these people are no longer fans? If you transition with them, those are the same numbers that will be attractive to sponsors. a sticky issue that we are trying to solve in the task force that was formed last year, where KEPSA is part of, a linkage to education. Right now, if you go to secondary schools or in the school system, who teaches sports? You must have gone to do BEd or teachers training, and then when you're doing teacher training, you're doing PE. You're the only person who can teach sports. We have athletes here in Situma who cannot, as much as they've achieved in their trade, they cannot go to class or they cannot go to teach. And one way of starting to grow that ecosystem is if you can have athletes who've excelled, be able to participate at that ecosystem at school level by them being allowed to teach or being coaches. What we've done is that you've already created a career path for the sportsmen, and the system grows. When it comes to private sector, government, and infrastructure, it's true. For the longest time, we've been saying infrastructure is the government's role, because the value of investing in infrastructure from a private perspective has not been there. But if we sort out the issue of numbers and translate this thing from the grassroots as we grow up, we can be able to have easy investment going into infrastructure. And infrastructure does not have to be big. For example, going back to the school system, that's where the largest number of sporting infrastructure is. If you look at football pitches, basketball courts, whatever standard they are, that's where they are. And you see, you don't need to spend a lot to come up with stadiums that are 30,000 seaters for you to be considered.
It's already there.
Yeah, it's already there. So you can have this infrastructure at local level to sustain that fan base, which can be able to translate in the numbers that you can, or rather create that product that can make sense to someone whom you want to partner with. And the key thing is to move from, it's no longer just about being supported as sponsorship, but it's a partnership.
Thank you, Collins.
And the numbers matters.
Thank you, Collins. So we want to have the conversation moving, and so you'll raise a hand for you to speak. I see, Christine, you'd raised the hand earlier. Christine Kariuki from Atukah as marketing manager. How do we get more money from Atukah, and not just the brand Atukah, but from the entire organization, going into sports from grassroots all the way?
I think before even I speak on how to go about money, I'll cling on to something he said about partnership, which I think is very important, right? Because as corporates, when we do invest, it's important that there's governance. But also on the other side, the team that we're partnering with, it's important that they're also after the same agenda, growing the sport, be it golf, be it rugby, be it football, be it athletics, right? And one thing that is also very critical and that he's just raised is on getting people or following or fans to come and start enjoying and get back to that fandom, right? When we look at international leagues, and I heard them being referenced before, you will see thousands and thousands of people in the stadiums. If I use football, for instance, or rugby, the fandom is huge, right? And I think we've done a phenomenal job growing golf, right? In all sincerity, I think let's also give ourselves a pat on the back where we've done good work. We've done a phenomenal job growing golf. Years before, you would not have a crowd, minus the few who understand the sport, coming to even spend time to enjoy the sport, to interact with the sportsmen, or to even engage with the various fraternities that you'll have here, right? And the work that the brands are doing, Johnny Walker and the other corporate partners have come on board. And the biggest role I'd say we do as KBL or EABL when we come with our brands is creating that space.
Could you give? Yeah. Her mic has died. No.
Thank you. Sorry. As I was saying, the important thing is creating that atmosphere that brings more and more people into these spaces to enjoy the sport and to interact, right? And that's on golf and that's on Walker. When you ask your question on more investment from corporate and on sports, I think there are many brands that want to get into sports, right? I speak on behalf of Atukah, a brand that is has gone behind Olympics in a big way, the team that went to the recent Olympics and has done so for years.
continues to have one of the most successful, I'll say one of the most, and I know it's a challenge, but here we go. One of the most successful football clubs in Kenya, and our chairman is here, Mr. Gacheru, and actively investing behind the teams, the players' welfare, their conditioning and strength, their health, all the things that make a sportsman holistic, right? In addition to their training. And doing so consistently and deliberately. So the investment is there, Eric, and the corporates and brands do want to continue investing in these sports, give or take rugby as well as athletics or even volleyball, right? It's how do we partner better? I think that's the most important thing that I've heard him say, and I really, really want to hang on that, because a partnership is only a partnership when both sides are creating the atmosphere at the best intent of the sports people, right? So not just the brand getting back the return on investment that they put in, or the fraternity if it's FKF or the rugby union, or if it's the Kenya Golf Union, but it's both parties coming together at the interest of the sporting, of the sport and of the sporting men and women.
Sorry, are there times where you felt, without naming like specifics, you know, times where you felt that someone wasn't pulling their end of the, you know, their end of the stick, so to say?
I think
from
one,
a partnership
I can,
perspective.
And not to point any fingers, as you said, but I think an important one that makes a partnership a bit tight or a bit sensitive is governance, right? Because as a corporate, I want to come into a space that I feel and have the comfort mentally. And at heart, hand to heart, I can say that the investment is going to the right targeted intent, right? If it's an investment, say, within golf, or if it's in rugby, athletics, or whatever sport we're discussing, that as a partner, when I put in the investment, not just money, we also come with other expertise as brands, right? Various brands and corporate brands, you're here with Absa, Johnny Walker, and the like. We come with the expertise and the investment, but we seek that even our partner brings on board very fair governance that makes then the intent truly and fully met.
Governance is coming up a lot. Again, I know that we're going to need feedback from those who came in the beginning of the conversation. Olivia talked as a fan who's interested in investing. Who else can speak? I want to hear a fan experience and lens on whether or not there's been progress, or whether what they see, what you see from, I think you came and said you're a fan. And now you've kept quiet. I'm like, I'm looking for a fan. She's like, not me.
Kerubo Momanyi used to be a fan.
Used to be a fan.
She's still a fan now, but on the other side,
yes, absolutely.
She's a woman rep for football.
Yes. I know. I was just pulling your leg. But I think it would be important to hear. You know, we've talked a lot about fans. We've talked a lot about the fans who go to the stadia. A fan who can just speak from that perspective of where they think there's a gap in what is not progressing certain sports, and if, right?
I think Wokabi is the guy, because he is.
I was
going to
then want Wokabi's.
But before any of that, I think he's a lover of sports.
He's a diehard fan.
You know?
Wokabi the fan.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how to answer that, because, like you said, there's two sides to this coin. Yeah. There's what the sports people need to do. There is what the corporates need the sports people to do. But maybe we also need to look at it, take a step back and say, there's those corporates who've done this for many years. So why have they done this for many years? So Absa has done this for 14 years. Why have they done it? Absa are doing Sirikwa tomorrow. Why are they doing it? Tusker have, through thick and thin, no matter how bad Kenyan football has been, they've always kept Tusker FC. At times it makes no sense from outside. You wonder, why do they do it? But they've always done it. So there has to be a reason why. Sorry, CEO. So there has to be a reason why those corporates have kept this going for years and years. And maybe the question should be, to the rest of the people, what has golf done, what has athletics done, that volleyball, for example, is unable to do, despite the fact that volleyball should be such an easy sell. And we are the queens of Africa, but we don't seem to get it. So maybe it's also a question of us just being able to find out what is it that those ones have done that the rest of the people should do.
That's a really good perspective.
Kuna mafans pia huko nyuma, you'll raise a hand and we'll bring a mic to you, you know, on what you can do to fix.
Can I hear from her, because she's done everything? Football journalist, owner of a football club, now women's rep, so she probably would know where the shoe pinches.
Okay, thanks, Wokabi. I feel like you always just call me to set me up, but it's fine. My name is Kerubo Momanyi.
I've met a few of you. As they said, I'm the current NEC woman representative. They're actually the only woman in the National Executive Committee of Football. My president is here, so I might have to be very guarded in how I speak.
No, Choma.
But I'll start with a precursor, please. Anyone who has money, bring it to football. This is the right time. Don't be scared. There's a new house. We have, and I'm not just looking for allowances, we have communication, marketing, advertising expert at the helm. I think he didn't even believe it himself. We have someone who knows how to package products and sell them out to the biggest bidder. And we feel that's what football has been lacking for the longest time. Let me tell you something funny about football. I'll speak about football. Is whether or not there's a president, vice president, woman rep, or whatever at the helm, the systems run. The clubs will play, the leagues will go on, irregardless. It's a word, yeah? Regardless of who's at the helm. So what normally changes as a word that everyone keeps running around is governance. So when you have the right governance, now more products can trickle down into the sport. So I started this thing as a fan. I was supposed to be in a big corporate office right now, and I used to make a lot of noise on Wokabi's Football Sunday about 15 maybe years ago. And I started my football club on air because the leagues were resumed. And we were sitting there with the Mukami Wambora, and Wokabi was asking us, so which is your women's team? And we said, we don't even know the women's teams. And we said, why don't we start one? And just like a joke on Capital FM, on Football Sunday, we started a football club, still running till today, playing somewhere in Kisi. And we started from the perspective of fans thinking, what can we do differently? And Joyce went on, and she's now, I think, the treasurer of SJAC. And I went on, I'm currently. And the person who was our SG for the club at that time is the current chairman of FKF at Football for Nairobi West Branch. So everyone who started that club at that day, I think we had something to do, not just as a fan. So maybe sometimes don't just wait for what other people can do. Maybe also just get into the battle, and that's what I like about most of the people on this panel. Don't just wait for what other people can do for your sport. Maybe get into the battle and say, what can I do as an individual to change my sport? And I think that's what we did as fans. We went inside, and all of us have managed to change our sport in whatever capacity it has been. That is from a fan perspective. Also, when you're on the pitch, on the stadium, you must always remember you're a brand ambassador of whatever sport you're representing. And you must always, always act as if, such that when someone looks at you, they're like, okay, you mean football has English like this, yeah? So when you talk to those people, once in a while you throw in good words, and you make them have a more positive outlook towards the sport that you're representing. Always walk as a brand ambassador of whatever it is you're trying to sell. So you don't be known for all the wrong things, but when you come here, you're trying to portray this good, saintly person that is trying to look for resources from a corporate. We've been looking for partners, and I know a lot of these things are very, very easy to say, and to give us lectures and to explain to us. But I'll tell you, as someone who's on the field now, a lot of these things are easier to say and give people pointers and explain than to do. And when you sit there is when you realize literally, literally squeezing water from a stone. And maybe one of the things we need to look at as people in the administration is how to incorporate experts to teach us how to package whatever it is we have, and so that we can understand what is it we are selling. Right now, I have I think 9 tiers of women leagues that are under my docket as a head of women football in the country. And my top tier league is just the Women Premier League. And we look at it, it just has 12 teams, but we don't have a sponsor for it yet. And yet, if you look at it number by number, I'm not being an activist, I promise you. If you look at the number of professional women footballers from Kenya right now, I think the best in the world are coming from Kenya. I think we're ranked second after Morocco in terms of export to other countries. You talk about the Women Premier League in Tanzania, yet half of their star players are all from Kenya. All their main clubs, Simba, Yanga, and Fountain Gate, the players are all from Kenya. JKT has, I think, 2 now. You talk about clubs, we have players in Morocco. I think we had dinner with the Harambee Starlets, who are playing today, by the way. So when we leave here, we all move to Lindsay to cheer the Starlets. So we had dinner with the PS 2 days ago for the Harambee Starlets. And I remember when the players were introducing themselves, I could see like his eyes popping every time. Because he couldn't understand, like all these are saying, my name is so-and-so, I'm playing in Greece, I'm playing in Romania, I'm playing in France, I'm playing in the US, I'm playing in Egypt, I'm playing in Morocco, I'm playing in Tanzania. And I think he couldn't believe the amount of professional soccer women players that we are exporting outside. So maybe it's also about how we don't know how to package the kind of product we have for people to understand what it is we are selling. So I guess the challenge I've picked today as an administrator, I didn't just come to lecture. I have 1 or 2 lectures. But the challenge I've picked today is how do I learn to package these products? Because I know offside, but I don't know marketing. So how do I learn to package this product in a way that maybe the person with the money can want to look at me and look for me every time and tell me, Kerubo, just take this 15 million, eat one, but 14 give to the girls, you know, and put it around.
You know, Kerubo, this guy, when he was campaigning to be the FKF president, he came with that pedigree and said, you know, I've done sports marketing, I've done all this, and I'm going to fix football by making sure that we are branded. Are you?
Well, you see, we of course have a federation that we've inherited, and I don't want to dwell in the past. It's out there for everybody to see. And you know the history of FKF. We've inherited, I think, a debt portfolio of almost 500 million shillings. We are starting from, of course, a negative position. Again, we are struggling. We've been struggling with the image of the federation. And I think everybody keeps talking about governance. We can't fix it in a day. So it's about the systems, the processes, the structures within the federation that must be looked at, the human resource. And I think many of you might not know, we also had restrictions with FIFA, which we are working on to get removed. We've been banned several times. So I think it'll take quite a bit of work, and we have now a very good team, a very competent team, a very committed team, as you've had Kerubo passionately speaking about what we need to do and what we must do for women football, and also to add on to that, youth football and so on. So for football particularly, we cannot do it on our own. We cannot, and I don't shy away from saying this, we need all the partners on board. We need all hands on deck. We will do our part to make sure that we package our products well, that we present these products to the right market, to the right audience, and give value. And this is where many people are shying away from, or rather we're shying away from speaking openly about, is that do you extract maximum value from the products that you have in the market? Even this golf event, if you look at all the sporting activities that are sponsored by corporate or by government, what is the value that is extracted from those events? And how many players, for example, did Chapadimba produce in the last tournament? Where are they today? How much money was put into it? And these are conversations that we must have and say what is the long-term impact of every shilling that goes into the sport. So on behalf of Football Kenya Federation, I want to welcome all sponsors, and including our government, to look at it differently now and say then, can we have a short, mid and long-term plan on where we want to see our football, from infrastructure development to youth programs to leagues and competitions that can be supported across the board. We must ensure that we have at least a 10 to 15-year plan on the impact we want football to have in this country. If we don't do that, then I think it'll just be what I called it earlier, extracurricular activity. You just do it for fun, we do it out of passion, weekend we meet up, play, because that's what we are doing currently. Until we understand the aspects of commercializing the sport, we won't move very far. So it's a step at a time. I know our work is cut out for us. I'm under no illusions of what is expected of us. The expectations of Kenya is very high, but we cannot do it on our own. We need you, we need your support, we need you to come on board. And I think it applies to all the sports. So for football, it is important that we understand the impact of the sport. Across the world, think of any big team, be it Manchester, be it Real Madrid, Barcelona, any big club has a foundation. The foundation is the community. It's the neighborhoods they come from. It's the cities they come from. We need to do the same here. We need to have a competition where when a county plays, be it the women team or the men's team, the entire community, the entire county is behind that team. So the moment you bring those eyeballs back, the moment you bring families into stadiums, then we will see the change. We have to fight hooliganism. We have to fight match fixing within our games. so that that credibility comes back. We will not attract families into stadiums if they don't feel safe in those environments. So for us to do that, we must work with the Ministry of Interior, we must train our police. So there's a lot of work to be done, but we are cut out for it, we are ready for it, and I just want to give the commitment that in the next coming months, you will see significant change in how football is run in this country.
Maybe I have a challenge, and I'm not sure who is best, maybe Situma and Trizah. How do we get over happy accidents? This country is full of happy accidents. Julius Yego, happy accident. Omanyala, happy accident. Cricket team 2003, happy accident. Angela Okutoi, some could say, almost happy accident. The Wanjiru is looking at me. How do we harness it and make sure that we have a more structured production of stars, such that we just don't have things that just happen and we are surprised? How do we do that? Jemo, you can start, and then Jemo, Trizah, and then the coach.
Okay. It's sadly that we have a happy accident, but I can say, it doesn't happen from a blue moon. They work so hard. But again, it goes back to the packaging, Of course, apart from coming up with the structures and the way we can implement the structures, now, how can we package ourselves as athletes, you see? Because we're seeing a scenario whereby we're marketing players, but we are selling music. You can understand what, if I can say that, So we just need to value the players, make sure that we give them what they deserve. We can compare our athletics with other countries, and we will say that Kerubo just said that when the players were doing the introduction, I'm so and so playing for a certain club outside the country, but how much do they earn? We don't have that. We haven't valued our players, and maybe acha niseme kwa Kiswahili, kuna mdosi wangu hapa, former mdosi wangu Tusker. I won a double with Tusker 2016 as a captain. Na nakumbuka when I talk about value, by that time, tukishinda game, tulikuwa tunapata $100 US. Saizi sijui kama anaweza niambia ni ngapi, but what I know, azijapita hapo 10 years down the line. Then what value do we give our athletes? Because at the end of the day, we want to improve the sport, but even monetization, we are not improving anything. We want to attract the corporate to come and be part of the game, but we are doing so little to the game. We are not using the same athletics to be the brand ambassadors of our product, you see. So we need to do a lot as administration, and this will go to my president is here. I think we'll work together to make sure that we empower players, both players and those people who are in management, because we have a gap, a very, very big gap. Because I have a product, but I'm not doing enough to make sure that I improve this product. So we need to have to work in unison to make sure that we improve this sport to the next level.
I like that. We can hear from Trizah and Sylvia as well before Coach Bernard.
From my side as an athlete, I think being able to have better structures in terms of transitioning, because like we've talked about having very good talent in schools, but those talents don't get to these top levels like in the clubs, in national teams, and years after. So we find that there is somewhere we lose those talents, and it's out of the structures that every federations or as a country that will have to ensure that when we have good talent right from school, they are monitored and they are helped in a way that they can transition to the professional level, because you'll find some athletes at those levels, maybe they do not have contacts, maybe they do not have the financial muscle to be able to get themselves to these levels of professional. So it's unless they are able to have someone who will hold their hands and bring them to a club or bring them to a national team. And again, we have a challenge in national teams where you find also it's not easy to make it to the national teams. First, we have issues like racism. First, we have issues like you find their coaches maybe who are aligned to a certain club. you'll find that there's good talent, but a player will be dropped. Like for us, it's a team sport. So you'll find a player will be dropped not because they're not good, but because maybe the coach just doesn't like you, or the coach doesn't like where you come from, the language you speak. And you see, this player will not get that opportunity to be able to get to that stage where they'll expose their talents. So even as much as we are a sports team, we also have that happy accidents. And it happens in a way that a player is denied that chance locally and maybe finds their way outside the country. Then you start realizing this player is doing so well that now you come back as a country, you are called to the national team. Now you are looking at calling back that player to come and help you win at the world stage. So I think it's more about structures, more about transitioning, and of course just ensuring that we do not, as much as we are focusing on funding, on governance, we also need not to forget about the product, which is the athletes. Because for us to get up there, we need to ensure that the athletes are able to perform better.
Thanks for giving me the chance to speak on this again.
I thought I was next after.
Oh, we wanted to hear from the athletes and then the coach.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so my points are just going to be basically a summarization of what I've had today as well. And I think one thing that I have noticed everyone speaking on is about talent. And I feel, I'm going to admit I'm not the biggest fan of that term because I think it ends up being a reductionist to the actual work and labor that at the end of the day, we as the athletes need to put in to get to that point. And I have noticed it's not just in esports, but also basically in other professions like athletics. Because people think that, in esports, you just need to press a button so that you can get to that high level, or for athletics, you just have the talent of running. For soccer players, you're just kicking a ball around. But at the end of the day, once we go overseas, you actually end up finding that we are being outdone by countries that have put in the work and into stuff like sports science that allows them to thrive at the higher level. They're actually putting researchers, psychologists, and the like to actually get the best out of their players. Because at the Rebel Performance Center, there's something they said that hard work beats talent, or something along those lines. And I also think that we also need to start talking about creating structures that are cognizant to our realities. In esports, we've started to see that countries like China, China has a 5-year plan for esports. Saudi Arabia has a Vision 2030 plan to reduce their over-reliance on oil, and they have started putting so much investment and infrastructure into esports now that the International Olympic Committee have given them the go-ahead to do the Olympic esports games, and they'll be doing that for the next 10 to 12 years. And this is now part of and in the United States, we have stuff like US, they have venture funding into esports. We find that Japan has the arcade culture that they have invested in to make them powerhouses in esports. And now this is now part of their soft power from a geopolitical standpoint. And now we in Kenya, we've had every chance to now make ourselves a geopolitical powerhouse, or at least have soft power, by putting infrastructure and funding into stuff like athletics. Like we are world renowned for athletics, and we have people like Faith Kipyegon, we have the likes of Eliud Kipchoge. And now for me, this was a wasted opportunity on that front. But now with esports, we have that blank slate, tabula rasa, to put it in Latin, to maybe try and to get that to go ahead. Because I'm not sure if that ship has sunk and sailed with athletics, but I mean, this might be as well be that time. And it also helps us avoid this issue of happy accidents, as James was talking about. To be honest, I feel like I am one of those happy accidents because I have put in the work to try and do something for esports in my time as an esports athlete, and it's still something that I am trying to do. Last year I was in Johannesburg and I participated in the Mzansi Esports Champions. I brought home a silver medal, and I feel that I mean, we need. I just wish that my country actually gave a damn about that, to actually give me and other aspiring esports athletes that opportunity to get ahead and do this country proud. Like, we love this country, but it feels like it doesn't love us back, if I'm being honest. And then lastly, I think we need. I am of the opinion that I want the government to have a very hands-off approach to. Hear me out. Hear me out. Let me cook. I feel like the government needs to have a hands-off approach. Just create an enabling environment. Like, if I'm going to give an example of esports, I'd love, like, if they'd reduce the taxes on this equipment that we actually need to get ahead, consoles, PCs, and the like. Putting maybe like just a little bit of fun infrastructure creation, because I don't want to see an instance of where the government isn't doing anything for us, but they're all about, once you actually start getting like medals and the like.
Janet had a mic which was stopping people from...
I'm sorry.
Janet, you lost your mic. You lost your mic. I just want to tell you one thing. As an athlete, Situma, for esports, first of all, don't wait for anybody to give a damn. I guarantee you, utakufa na heartbreak. I guarantee you, I've been in sports. Apart from all these other hats I'm wearing here, weighing on my neck, I played badminton for Kenya when I was 16 years old. So I've worn national colors. And I tell you, if you sit and wait for us to give a damn, utakufa heartbreak. But Situma, you made an important point. Players are important. Trizah, players are important. I want to challenge you and to challenge players. Janet will tell you that she writes proposals every day and goes to clients. Athletes must start doing the same. Write a product, identify who you are. Maybe you believe in tree planting, or you believe in helping young children. Write a proposal. Don't just wait for people to give a damn. Write something to improve the welfare. People will come to you once you have a plan. Marketers like Christine are chilling, waiting for people with clever ideas that can speak to them and speak to you. Sorry, I cut you short, but I thought Janet had lost her mic.
That's a good point.
Janet.
Because we need to wind up. Let's get to Coach Ben, and let's hear now how, just to respond to Wokabi's question, how do we avoid happy accidents and make sure we have a proper working pipeline?
Yeah, thank you very much. And Wokabi, that is very, very important. We have a number of talents out of accidents. The lifespan of an athlete, active lifespan of an athlete, is very short. So the earlier it is identified, the better we can maximize on that potential. If you go to Europe, we got what is called the iKid coaching. This is a pedagogical system that is put into place to identify talent so early, nurture them through a pathway, transit them into professional where they're monetized well. Here in Kenya, we have the Kenya Academy of Sports that, if well-funded, can do the same, where they can do certification, coaching, upskilling, and education to help all this in line with Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development to do a pedagogical approach for coaches to do through that. National Olympic Committee of Kenya is doing the same by sending coaches outside for education, sports science, and there was a beneficiary of the same as well. At the ministry as well, there are structures being put in place. And I like the interjection of CEO Gacheru, that the enzi of serikali's idea imeisha. There are always structures of how to do that. As a federation who is looking after you, you have officials who are doing the same job, and in terms of taxes as well, you do a letter and those will be exempted or reduced, and this happened to many other products coming into the country as well. Esport is big. You did a launch at the Ministry of Sport, and I saw a request on the same, on tax reduction, on equipment for the same, for that as well. So to avoid accident by talents, it requires all of us, from schools, parents as well, Gone are the days where unaambiwa enda cheza, we'll find out tomorrow where you can run or do football. We have to put them through multiple sports to identify what they're good at a particular age. There's normally stepwise, there are normally stages where you can go professional or you can go speciality into the skills that the child or the athlete is good at. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Coach. We've got to come and close the show now. It's about 4 minutes to the top of the hour, which is the time where we normally exit. And I want to thank you all for participating here, for engaging, for sharing your ideas. There's somebody who only spoke once and didn't get a chance to speak again, and this is the CEO of Team Kenya. You've dealt with all these federations. We are looking to you to, take the next team into our next, Olympics. But at the same time, tennis. Now mention tennis. How do we avoid happy accidents? I know you're going to argue that Angela is not a happy accident. It's a result of a lot of hard work, but she's the only one.
Yes, but as all this conversation has been going on, I've just been thinking in my head. But tennis, we seem to have done all these things right, In terms of governance, we have a great committee. In terms of, I even wrote them down here, development program. We have about 4,000 kids playing in public schools, in private schools, in international schools. In terms of coaches, we have the best coaches in Africa. We have the best officials in Africa. We have a great international scene. Every year we are hosting about 15 weeks of international events. We are attracting 20 countries for each of those weeks and about 100 players that come in. We had a strategy for Angie. We picked her up when she was 5 years old. We had a plan. We were holding a high-performance center here for very many years until COVID, and that's how Angela came to be. So she was not a happy accident. She was a 20-year plan, And then we have a stadium. We have, it's not a public stadium, but at least we have leased courts and we have a home of tennis. So, we have done all these things that I'm hearing here right. But still, the money is not following us. Still, Christine, Gacheru, I don't understand.
So the gap is in the packaging. She has not packaged. So you've done.
So we have not packaged.
You have a good product.
Yes.
You just haven't packaged it well.
Yes.
The story has not been told
As
boldly as I'm hearing it now.
Again, packaging.
Yes.
Ama amepika lakini hajaita watu. Okay, so what do you think you need to do to fix it?
So, of course, packaging. Now I have learned today, maybe there's packaging that needs to be done. We need professionals. We are running the events like I was a former player. I do not know marketing. Maybe I need to look for Olivia. I need to look for Gacheru, just so that we can be able to market it so that Christine can then consider sponsoring us. We need facilities, obviously. We need a home of tennis. We need public courts. Certainly something that we have to do. I know Gacheru says do not use the government, but we need the government. We need at least some basic facilities for some of our sports. The smaller sports are suffering. We are struggling. And it would be good if the government can just give us that small leg up for facilities only. The rest we can figure ourselves out.
Thank you, Wanjiru.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all this and for the participation. Mariam, I know you listen and you're like, some of these things don't make sense. So as you conclude, where is the sense? Do you see the sense in everything?
I do. Yeah. I think I've learned quite a bit, which was the intention coming here. I think I've picked up quite a few pain points, genuinely. I think the work to be done is there, but there's also intent, at least here. I can see the intent, and I can see, if we meet somewhere between, is it government, is it private sector, is it marketing, is it the sport, is it the talent, I think all of that when it comes together, then essentially we do fix the sport. And we've said it before, fixing is not tomorrow will be perfect, our leagues will be perfect, our athletes will be making bank like never before. It's, will we have moved an inch closer? Will we be able to say that we've done a little bit better today than yesterday? I think it's just also to think from a fan perspective, what I could be doing to be a better supporter, to be a better team player, because I think you want to be part of the team. So yeah, I've learned.
My parting shot is when she's like, wind up. So I'm going to say thank you. And this conversation continues online. It really can't end. I love that we also need to play a part, go to the games, actually saying, I don't know, I've learned a lot, but I don't want to capture it because I know we're completely out of time. So I'll throw it back to you, Latif.
We brought the mic to the ground today to the Muthaiga Golf Club, where the Magical Kenya Open is taking place, presented by Absa, and we thank Absa for also the conversation that we had with the CEO earlier. We bring the mic to the ground, and we'll be taking it not just here, but we'll be bringing it also across the country, so we can have conversations with different interested parties and communities. It's not a government issue. It's not government to answer questions, but it's for all of us to talk about how we fix the nation. Today, we've talked about fixing sport. Let's meet again on Monday from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Fixing the nation, one conversation at a time. It's Eric Latif, Mariam Bishar, Janet Mbugua, and a community of sports personalities and enthusiasts and managers and coaches and people who are saying goodbye. Thank you very much.